Hey everybody, welcome back to the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. I'm your host, Gordo Gambles. Welcome back to another full card breakdown. This time for UFC 294. We are in Abu Dhabi for one of the most highly anticipated cards of the year. We have the short notice replacement, Alexander Volkanovski, taking on the champ, Islam Makhachev. And we also have in the co-main event, Khamzat Chimaev taking on Kamaru Usman. It does not get better than those two main fights. We actually have 13 fights to cover as a whole. Now, I know I talk a lot in these videos, but as always, nothing's going to change. We're going to break down this entire card from a DraftKings and a betting perspective. It should be timestamped down below for your viewing pleasure. And I will also be happy to answer any question in the comment section down below or on Twitter at GamblesGordo. Show some love there. Hit the like button down below. Subscribe to the channel. Let's do this. We get the fight night started with the 23-9 Bruno Silva versus the 11-0 Sharabutin Magomedov. And once upon a time, I used to say that they get these first fight of the nights, go in there, bring the crowd in, and they like to make it exciting matchups. Recently, not so much. We've got some stinkers in the first fight of the night. This one, if it does stay the first fight of the night, is just for pure excitement. This fight's going to be an absolute banger. I have no doubt about it. Both these guys are extremely fun fighters to watch, especially the Sharabutin Magomedov guy. Can't even pronounce his name properly, and I hope I get close enough to it. Let's just call him the Bullet, and I hope he's okay with that because I don't want to call him the wrong name here. I don't want to piss him off. He's one terrifying individual. I don't want to rub him the wrong way, but he is a very fun fighter to watch, and although he may have his issues, it's exciting to finally see him step inside the octagon, and he gets a tall task ahead of him to do so. Magomedov is 11-0, a primary striker, a ton of power in his kicks. 10 of his 11 wins by KO, showing off that power, and man, he is fun to watch. Ton of power in his shots, good shot selection on the feet as well, good pressure. Maybe not the best volume, but he hasn't had to, right? He's fought this lower level of competition that's allowed him to utilize that striking from the outside and win these fights pretty convincingly with that striking. His grappling could be a bit hit or miss. It's not as good as you want to see in this matchup, especially when we talk about Bruno Silva here, but he is someone who has those fundamentals. There is clips of him grappling in these tournaments as well, so he is a primary striker, but I do think he has a good fundamental base for grappling. Shall it go there? But that bread and butter is going to be those powerful kicks in that stand-up style. Bruno Silva, 23-9, a guy who's had some good UFC experience. I mean, he's fought on both sides of the spectrum here. Alex Pereira, Jordan Wright. Nothing but love for the Beverly Hills Ninja, but it is a wide level of competition here, and he's not afraid to get into a fun fight either. 23-9, he has had his losses, but he's also a very fun fighter to watch. A ton of power on the feet. I mean, prior to that Pereira fight, he was also someone who showed good durability. A lot of his losses have come by submission, which is why you kind of want to see Bullet have some submission wins, but truly, he is a very competent striker, a ton of power on the feet, just as Brad Tavares, and a good ability to throw adversity to these fighters. I mean, he won his first 3 fights in the UFC, all by knockout. Good ground and pound. I think he has a good foundational base on the mat against his low level of competition. But man, he can be taken down. He can be controlled down there against high level of competition. And his chin, since that Pereira fight, hasn't been too perfect. I mean, he was dropped, club and sub by Gerald Mearshart, club and sub by Allen. These are not good looks for someone who's going up against someone as powerful as the Bullet here. So yeah, I am going to be siding with Magomedov here. He is someone who I think the UFC is trying to promote. A ton of hype behind him, and I understand why. Super fun to watch. I think in a 15-minute striking affair, he does get the best of it. Magomedov's a scary individual, and I do think he's someone that UFC can get behind and support, and I do think that power in the striking here does catapult him to a victory. However, being so inexperienced, and against a guy Bruno Silva who does show that he has the ability to turn up some fights and cause problems, I don't know how often I'm going to get to parlay or play Magomedov at this price tag. I think it is about right. I want to really sit back and enjoy this one, look at where the unders are priced, because I do think we get a very, very fun matchup, and one that starts off really quickly. Prediction will be Magomedov round 1 KO, and if that's the case, a decent target on DraftKings. There is a ton of chalky favorites on this card, so it's hard to get to, but 8.6K. He has round 1 finish upside, a ton of power on the feet. He doesn't have that same grappling upside you want to see from someone here, but I do think he wins this fight at 8.6K. He is someone we're looking to roster. So let's hope the hype is real. Give me the Bullet here to get things started with a very, very fun first fight of the night. We take kind of a step down here, and no disrespect, we do take a step down here for the 7-0 Victoria Dudakova versus the 11-9 Jin Yu Frey. Of course, both these ladies could beat me up, but not two of the fighters I'm highest on in this division, to say the least. Dudakova is someone who I think has a good fundamental skill set, but who I do think is still very green. I do think Dudakova has this raw skill set. I do think can be molded into a good fighter, but she's not someone who I think is perfect. Yes, good wrestling, but I don't like her striking at all. Very green on the feet. She can be hit. I don't like the way she absorbs damage. And she really hasn't fought any real level of competition to go out there and prove herself, and she's finally getting a step up here against Jin Yu Frey. Now, all this negativity towards Dudakova, are you thinking I'm going to pick Jin Yu Frey? Yeah, no, I'm not going to. At the end of the day, we still have an older fighter year in Frey who has lost 9 fights and who doesn't really have that power or volume or grappling to cause threats to Dudakova like I thought that maybe Nunes would have. And instead, I do think we have Dudakova here, someone who does win this fight at a pretty high clip. However, like I said, a ton of large favorites on this card. Does Dudakova have what it takes me to trust her at a minus 600 price tag? No, she doesn't. And of course, I am going to be picking Dudakova here, but not to this price tag, not to this extent. Frey is still going to be the superior striker in my eyes. And although she does have the smaller stature, and she probably will be taken down on the spot here, does defend takedowns at 89% clip, is going to be the best level of competition Dudakova has, I think that she's going to make it close. She might make these striking exchange closer than she has to. It might come back to the ones where, yeah, Dudakova might still win this one with her grappling, but does she live up to that price tag? Does she blow everyone out of the water? I don't know. Dudakova's still very young. I'm not trying to be rude to her. I still think she's a phenomenal fighter with a bright future. I just need to see her striking tested. I need someone to go out there and stuff her takedowns before I'm able to trust her at such a large price tag. With that being said, she does shoot takedowns at a very high clip, meaning she will probably get a couple to take down and control Frey once from that top position, allowing her to win this fight. On DraftKings, very interesting option, because you don't expect her to get that much love, right? With the Jublis, Basharats, Aliskerov, Mokaevs around there, she could go very overlooked at 9.2K, and she is someone who showed such a willingness to grapple, averaging 4.82 takedowns landed per 15 minutes. She could have a very, very sneaky upside here. At 9.2K, if her path to victory is so rooted in that takedown upside, and maybe even finishing an older fighter here in Frey, I'm for it. I think she's a great contrarian play at 9.2. Someone who I think does win this fight enough to warrant a spot in cash lineups or as a contrarian play in GPP. I do think she could get a decent look out here to go out there and score a ton of points with a ton of takedowns at lower ownership. She's someone fun to look into. And as much as I'm discrediting her level of competition and striking on the feet, is still someone with a clear-cut path to victory who will grapple enough to the point where she could warrant her DraftKings salary. So give me Dudakova. I'd be very cautious parlaying her, though, because this is going to be a step up, and we don't know how she likes to fare on the feet, but this does seem like a setup matchup for her to go out there and have success. I do think she gets it done by decision. Keep it moving with the 19-5 Nathaniel Wood versus the 9-2 Muhammad Naimov. Very, very fun matchup for me, but also a pretty simple one, right? I do think Nathaniel Wood is the far superior fighter in this matchup. Yes, the price tag reflects that minus 325 at the time of filming. He is someone who's expected to go out there and win. Not only does he have more volume, better leg kicks, better technicality, and also better wrestling to go out there and secure these rounds, he's just the overall better minute winner. The problem we have here, though, is he's facing a guy who is super, super durable, will continue to walk forward, and who has power in his hands. The way we've seen Nathaniel Wood is he's able to be dropped. He was clipped by Feely, finished by Dotson, was finished in the regional scene as well. He doesn't always bode well when there's power in front of him. And although he's going to be the much cleaner, technical, better striker here in this matchup, Naimov was able to walk down Malarkey and land one shot and win that fight. I mean, he was being dominated. There's no question about it that Naimov is not going to be winning minutes here, but he does have the knockout power to go out there and have success. So this fight's pretty easy to me. It is going to be Nathaniel Wood going out there and winning this fight until he's not, right? The only way I really give credit to Naimov for winning this fight would be catching the chin of Wood, which I don't think is impossible. I just don't think it's a very high likelihood. So I do think Wood wins this fight a lot of the time. I do think he's able to mix in the grappling, good leg kicks from the outside, have a ton of success in winning this fight, as long as he's able to avoid that power shot that Naimov coming back on him. For that reason, again, pretty simple breakdown. I'm confident in Wood. I'd play him, but if I'm playing him big, maybe hedge a little bit of Naimov KO because that does seem to be his path to victory. DraftKings-wise, this one's very interesting because if I said how durable Naimov was, I mean, when Wood goes decision, he scored 86, 77, 108, 89. He hasn't always had the best DraftKings score. I do think you're going to need a phenomenal score to go out there and win the 200K up for grabs in the big tournament. And although Wood has that path to victory on the ground, I don't trust him to do it as much as Dudakova will or Chimaev will. And for that reason, would I be surprised to see him go out there and outpoint him on the feet towards a 15-minute decision, scoring 80 points? Not at all, and that makes his ceiling a bit less limited. Of course, I'm going to have some ownership of him because he is so well-rounded. I do think he wins this fight at a high clip, but he's not going to be on major GPP tournaments. I do prefer the likes of Chimaev, Makhachev, Dudakova even for some contrarian upside, but he is someone who I see winning this fight a lot of the time. Flip side of things, Naimov 7.2K. His path to victory, same as last time. Losing until he's not. Scored 91 against Malarkey. And we are really struggling for DraftKings this week considering how chalky these favorites are. It's hard to find underdogs. So if you do think Naimov's able to crack the chin of Wood, he is a great GPP play. Although I do think that Wood wins this fight more times than not. Give me Wood. I think he gets it done by decision. Next up, we have the 7-0 Anshul Jubli versus the 10-6 Mike Breeden. And what is a very, very fun matchup between two people who, let's say, have different outlooks from the community right now, right? Mike Breeden's someone 0-3 in the UFC, 0-4 including Contender Series. He doesn't have the best look of things, right? He's gone out there and in two of his performances in the UFC, but knocked out inside of a minute. I mean, he's been knocked out in the first round 3 times. And that's not a good look for someone coming into this matchup, especially when they're flying you across the world to take on the biggest Indian prospect they have right now. And although it's a very small sample size, I think he might be the only Indian fighter we have in the UFC right now. He's 7-0, and he looked very, very good in his last matchup. Anshul Jubli went out there, beat up the very tough Jeka Sergey, and I do think he has a decent skill set for the UFC. I still think his striking is not perfect, right? I think there are some ways for him to improve. I think he is someone who does have a very well-rounded game plan, though. Decent cardio, good ability to go out there, mix in takedowns. His tape has been a bit, counterintuitive, right? Sometimes he's going out there shooting a lot of takedowns. Sometimes he's just striking the whole time. We don't know what version of him we're getting here. I do think this matchup here, grappling could allow him to have some success. Natan Levy took down Breeden a ton of times, and I do think Jubli could do the same thing here, allowing him to have some viability in that regard. With that being said, a lot of people were picking Jeka Sergey last time because Jubli can be hit, because on the feet there are these holes in his game. And his level of competition has made it so this guy's never really faced adversity. We don't really know what's going to happen to him when people can connect on him, when people can have success. For that reason, it's super hard to go out there and trust Jubli at minus 335. Although I do think he wins this fight. Go ahead, start a counter. I'm going to say it a few times. A lot of these times, these fighters should win this fight, but they shouldn't be favored to the extent that they are. This is kind of another one here. Jubli shouldn't really be this price tag against anyone before he's fought a good level of competition who can make him face adversity, really test him in that regard, and go out there and put on a fun fight. Breeden in this matchup has nothing to lose, man. He's 0-4 under the UFC banner. He's been knocked out. And that one fight went to decision against Levy. He was landing some good shots on the feet. He showed a good willingness to go forward. I think he's hungry in this point, and I'm not picking him to win. My reason of saying that is we're finally about to see a guy who's probably going to give Jubli some resistance. Yeah, Jubli can land a first-round knockout, do that over Breeden, no problem. But the later this fight goes, the more Breeden's able to get his reads on the feet. I don't think he's that horrible of a striker. Let's make it a close fight. Let's make it one where, again, hard to trust the money line, but a very fun fight in general. One where I'll be looking to play the under for sure. Whether it be Jubli getting another early finish on Breeden, whether it be Jubli utilizing that grappling, breaking the gas tank of Breeden, finding an opportunistic submission or ground and pound on the ground, that could be good either. Or whether it be Breeden getting a striking together, finally making Jubli face adversity, getting a finish in his own regard, I do think the under is live. I do think it's in for a very fun matchup. And for that reason, another fun fight on DraftKings. Jubli went out and scored 115 in his first matchup with 7 minutes of control time and just a good ability to break someone down the stretch. That would be a decent score to look for here. Whereas Breeden has never faced a victory. We don't know what it's like. But again, you have to think he's going to come in extremely low owned. And with his path to victory trying to stuff takedowns and land a ton of volume. Again, Breeden doesn't have anything to lose here in this spot, so we could go out there. He scored 62 in a loss last time. He is another very, very good contrarian play. Pick-wise, I do think Jubli is the side. 9.3K, he does have some good GB viability, including his takedown upside, the fact that he should win this fight a lot of the time, and the fight that this is probably a fight for him set up to have success. We continue with the 8-1 SD Dumas versus the 14-3-1 Abu Azaitar, and another interesting one, right? Sadiq Dumas is a guy who's kind of let down people in the past. I'm pretty hyped to go up to start, but has some holes in his game, man. Not the most technical guy. His ground game seems to be a gaping hole in his game. And that, with his brash personality, led some people to kind of jump off the bandwagon. Abu Azaitar, we haven't seen in a long time. Only one fight since 2018, and that was against Marc-Andre Barrios. He did get melted in that third round there with, 4 seconds left, but he showed a good account for himself to start off. But man, he's fought some low level of competition. Not saying Dumas hasn't, but considering we have a guy here who hasn't fought really in 2 years and only once in the past 5 years, I don't really know how well his style, as well as his level of competition and maybe mindset at this point of his career, bodes well in this matchup. Yes, his name is Captain Morocco, and in a card outside the US, perfect. They go out there, they get a guy who is closer to his hometown to have some success, but I do think that Dumas is going to have the upper hand here, and for the big reason being just the way I see this fight playing out. Although a small sample size, Azaitar only lands 25% of takedowns, and unless someone's going to go out there, either land a ton of volume on Dumas or take him down repetitively, Dumas a lot of the time is going to be a decent striker. He's a street fighter mentality. I do think he has decent technicality on the feet, but in this matchup here, for sure, he's going to have huge height and reach advantage. He's 6'2" here, has a pretty solid frame for this one, and I do think that in a fight from range, he does have the ability to go out there and piece up Azaitar. Yes, Azaitar went blow for blow with Barrios, but again, in a matchup that he did lose, being his only fight in the past couple of years, there's a lot of red flags on the Azaitar side. Dumas is far from perfect, but I do think that utilizing his range, utilizing his activity, his youth, and good finishing instinct if he's able to get there, I do think he's able to squeak out the win. I'm kind of upset at myself that I did miss the way the money line moved. I was looking at Dumas earlier in the week when he was minus 170, even at one point he was minus 160. Now he's minus 250. Again, Dumas is not someone I want to trust at this price tag, considering there are holes in his game. Maybe Azaitar's gotten better in this time off, right? Who knows? Not a fight I want too much of action on from a betting perspective at all, but DraftKings-wise, you kind of got to look at it, right? And not always because we're going to rouse to these guys, but see if we want to come lower owned to the field. Dumas, I don't think is someone we get to too often, right? I don't see him going out there and getting a first round finish to have a clip, although Azaitar showed some good durability. I think if Dumas wins this fight, it's probably using his range, maybe a later finish, or probably a decision. He's sandwiched in between the Trevor Peeks, the Magomedov, the Islam Makhachevs of the world. Dumas 8.4K is not someone I can get to too often. And actually, this might be a fight that's just hard to get to in general. Azaitar in his one win was a pretty ugly performance. He only scored him 82. I do think this could be a fight that could be a stand-up battle the whole time, and I do think there are much higher score-ups in this fight. I don't think this is one you want too much ownership of. Maybe some volatility, and if you have a big portfolio, you're able to go out there, put them in contrarian lineups, but considering the fighters around them, I do think they're better fights to target. Overall, a pass fight for me, but the pick is going to be Streak of Dumas. Then we go to 14-0 Javid Basharat versus the 23-6 Victor Henry. A very, very intriguing fight, but again, another one that's going to be a quicker breakdown for me, right? Victor Henry's been hit or miss, but there's one thing we know about him is he's a dog, and he usually throws a ton of volume, is not an easy opponent for anyone. Considering how durable he is, how pretty good he is at winning optics, especially when he's throwing a ton of volume, he's no easy out. He'll be in your face, and considering his durability and ability to make these fights close, plus 425 on him against anyone is kind of a disrespectful. But although I'm saying that, if I had to go out there and pick a winner in this fight, it's going to be Javid Basharat. I mean, every time a Basharat's going to step into the side of the cage, they're typically going to have an advantage. And that's kind of a really broad general statement of saying these guys have been good, man. Very well-rounded. I do think he's going to have a technicality advantage in this spot, a good ability to mix it up on the ground as well. And they have shown not only to have the cardio to compete with everybody, but they just want these wins. They want to go out there and succeed. They have a great mentality to do so, and both these brothers have had good success. So yeah, this is going to be the hardest opponent to date for Basharat, and someone who I think is going to pose a pretty big threat against. But considering the way he was able to outstrike Trevin Jones in this first one, or go out there and land 2 takedowns against Gravely, 3 against Mendonça, I do think that there are multiple paths for Basharat to go out there and have some success. His cardio's on point. I think he's the better technical striker of the two, more range, ability to use his tools, and I think both these guys are pretty smart. I do think Basharat's going to do his research, know where the holes in his opponent's game are, and go out there and win this fight. The question is, in doing so, does he live up to that minus 600 price tag? Henry's never been finished. I do anticipate this being 15 minutes. It is very interesting from that regard. And because it is such a close matchup that I anticipate going along, on DraftKings, another tough one to get by, right? 9.4K for Basharat. In his wins, he's only there scored 98, 83, 65. Yes, in this one, where if he's able to utilize his grappling more, maybe a better score, but man, enough to roster him instead of Mokaev, Aliskerov, Jubli, Dudakova, Chimaev. Like, out of everyone at 9.4K, he's not been the best historical DraftKings score, and considering Henry has never been finished, is going to be close in this matchup, I do think this is another fight where we see maybe a 90-point victory, which wouldn't go out there and lead him to the optimal lineup at 9.4K. Yes, contrarian play, if he's able to go out there, land takedowns, control Henry, score well in that regard, maybe, but again, I think there are better options up top. It's hard for me to get to him. Flip side of things, Henry might have some appeal, right? If this fight is going to decision, if Henry does have that same volume, he is going to be a sneaky cash option just because, I mean, against Barcelos, he scored 115 in a win. Take away that win bonus, he's still scoring 85 points. Same thing against Gravely. He doesn't win that fight. He still scores 76 in a decision. He has a ton of volume. His pace is there. His pressure is there. He's never been finished. I do think his floor is definitely high. However, the pick is still Basharat. So if you're going for that 200K lineup, I don't know how often Henry's in it, but he's a very, very good cash underdog this week. Decision's not a word I'm going to need for this one here. 8-1 Trevor Peek, 12-3 Muhammad Yayha. It's a Trevor Peek fight week, man. Super entertaining to watch. Nice guy too. Show the picture right here. But not a guy who is going to do much in there other than entertain you, right? Octavius Romeus might have to share his name here with the "Are you not entertained?" because that's what Trevor Peek brings out of the octagon every time. Not the most technically gifted, not the most well-rounded, versatile game, but an absolute dog, a guy who wants to go out there, will fight anybody, and it's a super fun style to watch. He goes out there, guns a-blazing, will throw anything from hammer fist to spinning things to whatever it takes to go out there and beat his opponents, and is super durable and wants this fight more than anyone. Right? If you don't have the right mindset or heart to go in there, Peek's going to break you down the stretch. However, with that being said, not the most technical, can be hit a lot, can be taken down, can be out-volumed, maybe not out-volume, but can be out minute 1, as per Mariscal did. Peek's not perfect. And then you look at this Yayha guy, I mean, you expect him to be a good threat against him. He opened as a huge favorite against Peek. I don't see it. You see the level of competition. Yayha is not fighting the best level of competition. You watch the tape, not really blowing you away either. He has been finished a few times in his record. He has lost 3 times, including being knocked down, including giving up these fights later in rounds. And although he does seem to have decent power, decent shot selection, isn't a primary grappler, is mostly a striker, and when you're giving me a striker who has been finished, hasn't always shown the best heart, and has fought low level of competition, I'm going to side with Trevor Peek here. Not because I think that Trevor Peek's a world-class striker, because he wants it more, is going to bring adversity and pressure the first time more than Yayha has ever seen, and Peak will not stop. I've seen Yayha stop before. I've never seen Peak stop before, and until I do, I'm going to keep picking this guy. He's someone the UFC wants to succeed. He's marketable. He's fun to watch, and I do think we get an absolute barn burner for as long as this fight lasts. Ton of volume, ton of volatility, and this should be a very, very fun one. I am siding with Trevor Peak, but on DraftKings, give me this fight all day, right? Trevor Peak, 8.2K, scored 130 in his first round against Gonzalez. I do not think that's off the table here. Super high ceiling. But if you do think Peak is not legit, because there are holes in his game, right? Yayha does have power. If he does implement some grappling, could have some success in that regard. He is also someone who has a very, very high ceiling and a win, and at 8K, you can get both these guys. I'm going to side with Peak. He is going to be the far chalkier option, so if you're looking to get different, Yayha might be the way, but give me Peak. He should get it done. I hope he does. It's going to be a very, very fun matchup. And the prelim headliner, 9-0 Muhammad Mokaev, 19-12-1 Tim Elliott. And this is where things get interesting. Once again, massive favorite. Can he live up to it? Mokaev's young, man. He's looked great into the UFC, scoring 126, 120, 121, and 99 in his 4 wins. He's always been a massive favorite, and rightfully so, because he's been so explosive, right? A ton of takedown upside. Good ability to control, shown good finishing upside, but what we've seen best from him is resiliency. Heart. I mean, that knee bar, that all that stuff is him going out there, fighting through it, and still managing to get these wins off. And I do think this guy is not perfect, right? His striking could use more volume. I do think he can be lost in transition sometimes, and we saw Malcolm Gordon take his back, but I do think the kid's special. I do think he's talented, but he is taking a big step up in competition. He has fought some really low-level competition recently, right? Philo has actually seen to be decent, but Malcolm Gordon, I love the guy. I look forward to maybe watching him in Toronto, but not the highest level competition. Johnson can't stop a takedown. He's finally getting a massive step up here against a guy in Tim Elliott, who, yes, is older, but this guy's a dog, man. He'll do whatever it takes to win, whether it be cheating, just like his wife. But he's someone who wants those fights. Fought a great level of competition. Very, very weird style to deal with because he's so back and forth on the feet, tons of movement, but also very good ground game. Very good, well-rounded fighter. Yes, he can be caught in submission. He can be outstruck, but he's been a big underdog before and has fought through. I mean, he fought very, very close against Demetrius Johnson in there in his, let's say, coming out fight. Dominated Espinoza in a close one there. Pull off a big upset against Ulanbekov, and then had a very, very good performance against Altarino last time. He's a fun fighter to watch, and on DraftKings too, he's fun to watch as well because he's landed a takedown. He's landed a takedown his last 9 fights, so he is someone who's going to go out there and push a heavy pace, and it's going to be a fun one. And I do think we're going to see a ton of scrambles here, whether it be Elliott mixing up, maybe catching the back of Mokaev, winning these transitions because he is very scrappy. It's going to be super, super fun. And I do think it's one that's going to be a very, very close one. I do think it's one that's going to be highly contested. But if I have to pick a winner in this matchup, it's pretty simple. Because Mokaev is going to be the younger fighter. I do think he's the slicker jiu-jitsu artist. And I do think Elliott makes mistakes here. And I'm not saying Mokaev doesn't, but I do think Mokaev is able to capitalize on them more than Elliott can. I do think this is a very, very fun one, though. And it's one where I don't think Elliott parlaying Mokaev. Although I think he wins, I do think Elliott's very, very live to go out there and put pressure to him, bring a new style of fighting that Mokaev hasn't seen inside the cage yet, and make it very, very interesting. DraftKings-wise, though, this may be a very important one for you, right? Elliott's 6.6K. Historically, he's been a phenomenal DraftKings scorer. 116, 95, 97, 108 against De La Rosa. But he fights such a high pace, and with such a low salary, it allows you to get a ton of other people, right? He scored 45 in a loss to Nicolau there. With so many grappling exchanges, with so much volume, such a high pace, I do think this fight scores very, very well on DraftKings. And he could be one of these matchups where he loses, but at 6.6K, puts up 40, 50 points and makes optimal lineup. I would not be surprised at all. I'm very interested in Tim Elliott this week. Flip side of things, Mokaev has been a historical good DraftKings scorer, right? 117 in his 4 performances before, and that's his average. And I do think he's someone who, again, should win this fight, should have a high score in doing so, considering all the grappling exchanges and the finish upside he has. But in doing so, you have to think, is he going to score better than Aliskerov? Is he score better than Jubli, Dudakova, Chimaev? He is so expensive this week. I would not fault you if you decided to go otherwhere. But give me Mokaev, give me this fight as a whole on DraftKings, maybe some dog ownership of Elliott, but I do think Mokaev gets better at the exchanges. Should be a very, very fun fight, but values on Elliott, but the pick is Mokaev. On to the main card now, 18-5 Muin Gafurov versus the 17-3 Said Nurmagomedov. I do like to watch Said fight, man. Very, very fun fighter to watch. Good spinning attacks, great technical striker, good ability to capitalize on these finishes as well. Very opportunistic submission game, and he displayed that recently. I do think he won his last fight. It was very close against Martinez, who has been on a roll, though. Not going to discredit him here. He does have another matchup ahead of here, and Gafurov, who is going to be pretty fun. Gafurov showed up on short notice. Put on a very fun performance against John Castanet, but did not get the nod there. Prior to that, did lose to Canadian legend Chad Helliger in a close split decision loss as a huge favorite, but has shown he has a decent overall skill set, right? Good technical striking. I think he has good aggressiveness when he goes out there and tries to throw volume. Decent ground game if he goes there as well. But the knock on him has been his durability, man. He was dropped a few times by Helliger, and although he's never been finishing these fights, people are dropping him. People are coming close to when he's facing the most powerful guy, probably the best technical striker he ever has here inside Magomedov. Additionally, I don't think Gafurov goes out there and wins minutes convincingly enough to go out there and really threaten that minute winning potential for Magomedov. With those flashy kicks, with the power behind them, he is someone who can go out there and typically win minutes very well. The cardio sometimes in question. Again, Gafurov's pace isn't one to really question it all too much. I think at the end of the day, we do get ourselves a very good tactical striking battle, one where the guy with the flashier stuff, the moment winning, and maybe even some finish upside is going to be the Magomedov side, and he is someone I'm going to pick to win this fight. Now, if money keeps coming on Gafurov, sure, I'll take a shot at Magomedov, maybe at the minus 180 range or something like that. But anywhere above minus 220, I don't think is that as good, because Gafurov is someone who could still fight for your money. I don't think Gafurov's a scrub at all. Big open competition, but it is one that should be interesting. If Gafurov does go for takedowns, he could have some success, but Magomedov's really hard to hold down. And even at that, it's such a good opportunistic submission game. Maybe it'd be his own detriment, right? Cody Stamen got stuck in one of those. Magomedov was dominating the whole fight until he got caught. Interesting from that regard. However, on DraftKings-wise, though, it's not as appealing. Citing Magomedov 8.8K in his wins, in his 2 decision wins in the UFC, he scored 60 points and 68. That is absolutely awful, especially at this price tag of 8.8K. When he's getting these submission wins, he scored 117 against Dom, which isn't bad, but come from behind and win against Magomedov, scored 77. He isn't the most potent finisher, and without any really offensive wrestling upside or a ton of volume, he isn't someone who's going to go out there and score really well without that finish. So if you think it's the finish, perfect. Good GBP contrarian play, 8.8K. Otherwise, though, not the guy I'm getting to most often. Sandwich in between Makhachev and Chimaev, I don't blame you. So more of a contrarian play for the knockout upside, however. But when I do think that Saeed wins, and it should be a fun one. And then probably the shortest breakdown I'm going to have right here. 14-1 Ikram Aliskerov, 14-6 Warley Alves. Aliskerov, highly touted opponent. Only loss coming to Kamzat Chimaev. Very, very fun guy to watch. Originally was supposed to be facing Naimov here. Gets a bit of a step down here in Warley Alves. Someone who is extremely dangerous, there's no doubt about it. But who I do think is going to be a step below here. Aliskerov, extremely dangerous guy. His striking, I think, still has some improving to do, but he looked good last time in doing so. Very, very good control grappler, great cardio, and overall just very, very good threat. And I do think Warley Alves is someone who's very explosive early on, but can get tired as the fight goes on. Can be out volume, can be out grappled, can be submitted, all these stuff. Although he's super opportunistic in his own finishing ways, will struggle against a high level of competition. And I do think this fight being on shorter notice for him doesn't help him at all here either. I do think Aliskerov wins this fight. Now some MMA math will play into it. Warley Alves usually wins these fights by first round finish or bust. Alves round 1 is plus 1,000. Maybe a little sprinkle because that's the only way Aliskerov has lost. But no, I do think Aliskerov wins this fight at a very high clip. Minus 650 to do so. Yeah, I don't know how much meat is left in the bone for that one, but a fight I do think he wins. A fight where I do think he can win his grappling, cardio, and get a late finish in this one. But DraftKings-wise, like I mentioned, Aliskerov, 9.5K. If he's not going to win this fight till later, if he's been falling in love with his hands and striking recently, does he go out there and outscore Mokaev, Jubli, Ankalaev, Dudakova, Chimaev? Maybe not. So maybe you'd be a bit contrarian because I do think Aliskerov is popular this week. But I do think he has one of the highest floors in this entire slate. I do think it's a late finish. I do think he wins this fight at a very high clip. So he is someone you can definitely go to. I'm trying to play devil's advocate for that regard. Alves, though, is a complete punt play. He is the punt play this week. If he wins, he's typically going to score in the 90s or 100s and a 6.7K. Very, very good way to do so. Complete punt play. I do think Aliskerov wins, but interesting fight. Excited to see it go down. And then the 18-1-1 Magomed Ankalaev versus the 21-7 Johnny Walker. Is this a number one contender's bout? Probably. Ankalaev, absolute tear. Only loss coming to Paul Craig last second. Got to throw that in there, but an extremely tactical fighter. Good ability to mix it up on the ground. Very, very good, patient counter striker on the feet as well. Maybe the best 205er we have. The guy's talented. You can't put that past him. Johnny Walker, the other side of things, has kind of turned a bit of a corner, right? Absolute madman typically. Came in the UFC with that questionable chin. I mean, he's been knocked out recently against Hill, but has kind of turned a corner, right? Slow-paced fight against Santos. Slow-paced fight against Smith. But he still showed that he has that power like he did against Craig. A decent opportunistic game against Kutalaba. Like, the guy is very explosive offensively, but he has these defensive holes that have made him kind of fight slower sometimes. And I do think that in order to have success in this fight, you have to throw all the defense regards at the window. You just have to go balls to the wall against Ankalaev. Ankalaev is going to be a far superior technical striker to him. No doubt about it. Whether it be on the ground, counter-striking, all that stuff. I do think Ankalaev wins in minutes at a very, very high clip. But if Johnny Walker wants to have success here, it's going to be rushing Ankalaev, trying to catch him with something, be that crazy madman that Walker is. Ankalaev was dropped by Santos. Tapped when he faced adversity against Paul Craig with 1 second left. Although he's so talented, Ankalaev is not perfect. There are opportunities for Walker to go out there and find an opportunistic finish. However, I don't think it's too likely. My pick is going to be Ankalaev, but I'm kind of cheering for that madman of Johnny Walker to come out. Ankalaev is going to have that takedown upside, a bunch of opportunities to get there. The question is, how well does he score on DraftKings? At 9.1K, aside from first round finishes, I mean, indecisions, even in 5 rounds, he's scoring 96, 80 points. Last 3 round decisions, he scores 76, 82, and 74. I mean, the guy isn't historically the best DraftKings scorer, and although Walker may bring a pace, I fear that this could be a slower paced affair that Ankalaev keeps him at range, outpoints him in decision, and scores 80 points in doing so, not being in the optimal lineup. However, if the Walker of old shows up, Jamal Hill scored a ton of points, knocking out Walker in that first round. So did Anderson. So did Krylov when he dominated in that regard. When Walker's losing, his opponents are typically doing pretty well, and for that reason, maybe this upset on Ankalaev, but I do think that's all going to be based on the mentality that Walker brings to the cage. Good GBP play. I think that Walker is at the underdog price tag. His path to victory scores very well. I just think a lot of the time Ankalaev wins this fight, slower pace in doing so, and I don't think he outscores Chimaev, Wood, Dudakova. Kind of the same story we've heard before. So maybe a bit less exposure, maybe a bit under-owned to Ankalaev in this matchup, but I do think he gets it done. Fun matchup. Hope Walker goes out there explosive style, but I do think Ankalaev is a better overall fighter. He should get it done. And then the co-main event, the big one, the one where you guys have probably been waiting for me to talk the whole time, or skip with the timestamps down below. You do you, but make sure to like button down, subscribe to the channel, because we do have for ourselves a 12-0 Khamzat Chimaev versus the 20-3 Kamaru Usman. If we got this fight a year ago, maybe a different story, but at this point, we do have ourselves a minus 300 favorite here in Khamzat Chimaev, 8.9K on DraftKings, one of the biggest hype trains we've seen, and just an absolute killer in there. He's facing Kamaru Usman coming off of a loss, and they had a really puzzling matchup, right? I think when I originally was looking into this and thinking about it, it was like, yeah, I think Chimaev would be a great play to go out here and dethrone the king. But that was a year and a half ago. Usman's no longer the king. It's actually Chimaev who's the massive favorite. Is there value in his line? Is there ability for him to go out there and exceed expectations already more than we expect him to? We don't know. But what we do know from Chimaev is he's going to go out there, he's going to shoot a takedown in the first 5 seconds, and he's going to bring a super torrid pace for the first minute here. He's going to throw a bunch of different wrestling combinations at Usman, try to take him down with trips, with slams, with lifting him up, a bunch of different ways that Usman haven't really seen before. Usman's takedown defense is near perfect, but who's going out there and wrestling him at a high clip? No one who has that same power and explosiveness and killer mentality that Chimaev has. And now that Usman is as old as he is, with his knees being really frail, one of the worst joints in the body to have go, I do think Chimaev is able to pose a threat that we've never seen Usman handle before. So my pick is Chimaev, but with all the questions we have on the other side of him, right? How does he fare later on in fights? How is he when someone stops his takedowns? There are still questions to be learned about him. But at this point in time, when we have Chimaev who's been training for this fight, facing on Kamaru Usman who is aging, who is taking this on short notice, I too think is on a bit of a decline here. I do think Chimaev's going to be a younger, stronger, hungrier fighter who's going to go out there, bring a grappling heavy pace that Usman's never really seen. And we haven't really seen Usman from bottom position. When we did that one time, he was held there the whole round. I do think Chimaev brings a new level or wave or threat to this game we've never seen before, make it for a very interesting matchup, one where it just propels him to the top, but hopefully we see Boris back in there soon. I'll probably play Chimaev early. I do think he goes out there and wins the hearts of some. For those value hunting on Usman, I completely understand. Usman is not Kevin Holland or Li Jingliang or Gerald Meerschaert. Usman's a real threat, and I would not be surprised if he makes it a very close fight. But how else do I see this fight going down than Chimaev taking him down, dominating him, putting him in threatening positions early on? I think Chimaev brings a whole new threat to Usman we've never seen before. DraftKings-wise, 8.9K. Chimaev's never scored below 100 points. He averages 115. He is the best DraftKings play on the slate by far. 8.9K, I will be having a lot of my lineups. He will be extremely popular. I don't blame you. He's a phenomenal DraftKings scorer. He's something to look to target. Usman, flip side of things, again, he's going to be in his back foot the whole time, but he's still very, very good striker. Has shown historically good takedown defense, and you could argue has a better chance to win than the people around him. If that's the case, he's also alive. He put up 70 points and lost to Edwards last time. Historically, he scores phenomenal at 117 points per fight. He himself could be very, very live, but the pick is Chimaev. He's someone I'm rostering a lot. One of my most highly anticipated matches of the year. And then the main event, we get the rematch. Islam Makhachev 24-1, Alexander Volkanovski 26-2, and I don't really know how to feel about this one, right? I'd want to see a full camp on this one. I do think Volkanovski could pose a big threat. We saw first how close that first one was. I still think Makhachev edged it, and I do think it was pretty clear. But it's such an interesting matchup, right? Volkanovski is, and this is coming from a Holloway fan, a massive Holloway fan, is literally one of the best fighters I've ever seen, man. His ability to adapt, be smart enough to mix it up with the ground, technical striking, get reads in his opponents is almost unparalleled, and he's a super, super fun fighter to watch. But I do think right now you're getting a harder matchup to start. Not only are you taking this on short notice with no time to prepare, but now you're taking it in Abu Dhabi. And it's hard to see him go out there and win a judge's scorecard in that regard, especially with a guy who's much bigger than you, who has been actually training for a fight. Yes, I'm never going to count out Volkanovski, but if I have to go out here and pick out a winner, it's going to be Makhachev, with that size, with that home crowd behind him, and with a guy coming in on short notice against him. The striking was very, very competitive. I think Makhachev held his own, but whenever Makhachev was able to get to the back, he was able to hold him there. And I do think that, although it would probably be a close fight, that Makhachev typically gets his hand raised at the end of the day. I do think it goes all 25, surprisingly enough. It's super hard to finish Volkanovski. Maybe Volk can find that killer punch and shock the world, but I don't think it's all too likely. probably taking Makhachev by decision. Now on DraftKings, super fun fight, and another one you probably want to have. The last one, Makhachev went out there, put up 94 in a win, and now he's at a $800 discount, right? Last time, Volkanovski made the optimal lineup in a loss, but he put up 62 points at 6.7K, now at 7.5K. Still needs to be extremely popular, but maybe I'll be a bit under-owned him. Because although I do think that he makes this a very close fight, if I'm going for 200K, I'd rather fighters who I think win this fight more often and at lower ownership. Maybe that's me getting ahead of myself. I do think that he's a very, very good underdog to play at 7.5K because I do think he has a chance to win. Probably scores very, very well in doing so, but I think he's going to be extremely popular, not as cheap as he was last time, and I do think we're getting ourselves a discount on Makhachev we've never seen before. So give me Makhachev. He pairs well with Chimaev at 8.7K. This should be a very, very close one. I just see Makhachev getting his hand raised. I would love for Volkanovski upset, but I'm here to pick fights. I'm not here to lie to you at all. I'm not here to force any dogs either. I gave you guys my picks. That's who it is. Picking is on Makhachev. That's going to do it for me here on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. Quickly, let's run through my quick picks. Taking Islam Makhachev by decision in a very, very close affair. Kazmat Chimaev, first round, sub KO. Let's go with submission here and what should be a changing of the guard. Ankalaev by decision. I hope Johnny Walker brings that crazy pace, but until I see it proven, we'll take Ankalaev. Aliskerov, round 2. Magomedov by, let's say, round 2 or 3. Could be a sloppy shot by Gafurov. Could be a powerful shot testing the chin of Gafurov. Said has ways to get it done. Mokaev by decision. Trevor Peak, round 1 KO. Basharat by decision. Dumas by decision as well. Jubli, round 2. Wood by decision. Dudakova decision, wide price tag. And then let's take Magomedov, round 1. Again, no underdogs. Not going to force. Not going to lie to you guys at all. Those are my picks. Very chalky card this week. DraftKings wise, co-main event, main event are the way to go, in my opinion. Chimaev, Makhachev, two of my highest owned fights on the slate, and then right after that, it's that Peak Yayha fight. I want a lot of that one. Magomedov, Silva scores very well as well. I want them as well. Up top, I think both Jubli and Dudakova are good ways to get different. I think a lot of people are going to be attracted to Aliskerov, Mokaev. Get different. Play Dudakova, play Jubli if you want to get lower ownership. And then down low as underdogs. Punt play with Elliott in terms of higher floor. High GPP Alves, but again, very low percentage. Again, punt play, dart throw. Be careful. I think Elliott, Henry are good ways to get cheap down low. And then GPP wise, Usman, Volkanovski, Walker, those are some good ways to get different as well. Those are some dogs I'm looking at as well. Reignmaker-wise, I think highest ceilings, you got to go with Jubli, Dudakova, Chimaev, Makhachev, Peak, and then maybe Magomedov is that last one. And then betting, that's where it gets different. Again, only one play I got my eyes on so far, and that's Jubli Breeden. Fight doesn't go the distance. Parlay-wise, again, check out my other video this week to see, but I like Chimaev. I like the bullet Magomedov. I like Wood. Those are some plays I'm looking at there, and I'll probably end up playing both Peak and Magomedov if their lines come down. That's going to do it for me here on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. Hopefully this video wasn't too long. Should be all timestamps, you're able to view it there. But hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel, show some love. Check me out on Twitter at GamblesGordo, and check out my other content I have going on this week. I wish everyone the best of luck in all your DraftKings and betting endeavors. Let's make some money, guys.